So with the near perfect conclusion to what the Sky series set out to do back at the end of Sky's second chapter, most people probably thought that was it, especially when the game kinda hinted at another arc beginning somewhere else in Zemuria. But no, the next game still took place in the Sky series, making it a trilogy. But what's left to tell? We already took care of the professor, well, Kevin certainly did. Joshua and Estelle left to go on their own adventure across Zemuria to hopefully find Ren, and Cassius joined back up with the military to ensure the safety of Liberl. But it turns out this game actually focuses on Kevin. Hold up, we got a Kevin game? That's pretty awesome. I always felt like there was more to his character, and with his true nature being revealed when he salt-paled Wiseman, it seemed like there was still more they can do with his character, and I'm glad they went this route because this game is pretty freaking weird, but I love it. The game starts out with Kevin going on a mission undercover like it's a spy thriller or something, and dude, who the freak authorized this music to bang so hard? Now there's a couple things I want to clear up about this game that not only make it different from its siblings, but also kind of different from most of the series going forward too. So this game is surprisingly enough a dungeon crawler, and most of your time spent in the game will be doing just that. However, with that being the case, it is much lighter on story than the other two games. My in-game hours should be proof of that enough. I think they did this well too, because with the normal trail style of storytelling, it just wouldn't work for this kind of game. It would be way too bloated and counterproductive with the goal they set out to achieve when making this a dungeon crawler. You could argue that series like Persona balance it better since they afford much more story while still being dungeon crawlers, but I'd still say they're kinda different because 95% of everything you do outside of those dungeons are still mechanically aiding the dungeon crawling. Those other activities are fun on their own, yeah, but at their core, social links are there to make the dungeon crawling and the battles easier to manage as the game progresses. Because of the narrative in this game, however, there's no opportunity to just leave and do what we want to aid the dungeon crawling we'll do later. We've got a home base to return to, but everything outside it and the dungeons are completely closed off from us this time around. So with that, I'm only gonna lightly cover the story this time. Usually I'd go note for note how things progress throughout the game all the way up to the end, but this time I feel the story is short enough and worth it enough for the people who finish second chapter to just dive in for themselves and see what the game has to offer, because I often see people looking for reasons to skip this game since it's very obviously the black sheep of the trilogy, or even the series as a whole. Sky SC ending as great as it didn't help that perspective either, but I will go over the general idea of where we are and what we do in this game, so buckle up. If you haven't already, 84% of people who are watching my videos aren't subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy this kind of content and you're hungry for more, feel free to subscribe. Or don't, I guess, if you hate these videos. Trail's third begins as our protagonist, Kevin Graham, infiltrates a masquerade ball taking place on a Rhineford Company ship called the Lusitania. His mission is to recover a stolen artifact known as the Fool's Locket, and if the previous games were anything to go by, this one is definitely causing some kind of trouble. Kevin ends up getting the locket back, thankfully, because its power allows the user to convincingly tell any kind of lie. I don't even want to imagine how the wrong hands could use this in our real world. Unfortunately, taking the locket alerts the ship's security systems, leaving Kevin with no choice but to blast his way out, crossbows blazing. Eventually, he makes it back to his Gralsritter vessel, the Merkaba, where he contacts HQ of another successful mission and sets out to Liberl for the next one, where he'll apparently be getting a squire assistant to aid in this new endeavor. After landing in Liberl, he eventually makes it to the site of his next mission, the lower levels of the cathedral and Grand Cell alongside Major Sid and Erica Russell, Tita's mom. And can I just say that her actress was acting, bro? She is so overly angry and loud, it was actually comical. I love how much she loves her daughter. With that much love, I'm surprised she was able to stay away so long. I mean, I get it, she's got an important job, but geez, we're 3 games in and we're just now meeting her. But getting back on track now, they make their way down to the primal ground beneath the cathedral, an area used to seal away the powers of an artifact, this one being the Recluse Cube, discovered in Valeria Lake after Liber Arc fell at the end of the last game. Kevin has come here to collect it, but the situation is in kind of a gray area of the rules, since there's technically no rule to collect an artifact if it's still inactive, which it has been the entire time since its discovery. Erica wants to keep it for research purposes and as compensation for going out of their way to retrieve it, but that's when Kevin's new assistant introduces herself, Reese Argent, and begins to debate further with Erica Russell over who should get the artifact. But before Kevin can make the final say, the artifact activates, making the decision for them. Later that night, Kevin and Reese have a discussion about her becoming his squire, and it turns out these two actually have quite the history. It isn't fully explained here yet, but they to some degree grew up together, and she's pretty upset with him for not contacting her for 5 years. But soon after this, they discover they're being spied on, which turns out to be Gilbert from the last game. After a short couple of fights, the Recluse Cube activates again, and after a masked man with long white hair makes his appearance, giving Kevin a few cryptic messages, they're engulfed in a white light and black out. Sometime later, they reawaken in a place known as Hermit's Garden, the hub world for this game. Though despite being very weird, it's unclear at first that they've been transported to an entirely different dimension known as Phantasma, with no clear way to escape. They eventually realize that exploring Phantasma can lead them to finding sealing stones that house their old friends within them, and they're going to need all the help they can get if they want to discover the truth behind their being here, the existence of this place, and to escape this place alive. That's the gist of what we're doing in Trails in the Sky the Third. The story goes crazy deep from so many angles, but there's a bit of a twist on how this game decides to tell it. This time around, a lot of the game's extra story beats are now optional through a new mechanic known simply as the memory doors. Each door has a different symbol on them which classify them differently. Moon doors are for hour-long stories or longer, star doors are for shorter stories, 30 minutes or less, and sun doors are for mini games of some kind, which also add to the world building by taking place at moments we simply just accept it happened at some point. The stories of these doors are honestly not created equal. They can be very, very different from one another, regardless of what kind of door those moments fall under. Some can be flashbacks of events that happened years and years ago, and others can have just happened. I think it's worth getting at least most of these yourself. I know some of the requirements can get draining, especially knowing that all these scenes are uploaded to YouTube already, but I do recommend getting as many as you can on your first go around. Don't burn yourself out. A lot of people will kind of pester you into doing any and everything regarding the doors, but in my opinion, just find a good pace for yourself when playing the game and get the ones you want. I don't think it's a big enough deal to be crucified over it like some people tend to act like it is. I found these to be good pace breakers for all the dungeon crawling I do. The requirements for some doors would be, for example, win 100 battles, so that'd give me time to just enjoy playing the game and the now pretty fast-paced battles, and when I'd want to take a break from that, I can sit down for an hour and enjoy some pretty amazing story scenes of characters I love so much. A lot of them take place between SC and 3rd, so filling in these gaps make a lot of these doors worth doing. I've got a bit to say regarding some of these memory doors. They easily make the game the darkest in the series so far, but for now, we'll put that aside to talk about the battle system. Okay, so I thought I understood Trails combat from the last 2 games, but this game just made me really come to know it. Maybe it's because of how much non-stop battling there is in this game, but it made me realize how important some of these mechanics really were. I alluded to this in the last video, but it wasn't until this game where I actually started using the S-brakes. Keep in mind you could do this since the first game, but essentially instead of just waiting for a character's turn to use their S-crafts, you can just scroll off the menu down to the character portraits and select which S-craft you want to use for which character, and by this I mean selecting the red icon above each portrait. Doing this is an S-break, and what makes it different from the normal S-craft isn't just that you can use it whenever, it's that you can only use the S-craft that's set to primary and you're locked in once you press the button. There were many times where I did this then immediately regretted it because I knew I wouldn't be able to get the most out of it. So yes, using S-breaks can be very helpful, even more so than your normal S-crafts, but you gotta think things through before making your move in this game, because things this time are a lot harder than they were back in SC. I thought second chapter was a cozy ride, but this one had me on the edge of my seat feeling the need to optimize my battles every time I was in them. It helps that despite all this, battles battles still felt faster than before. Maybe it's something with the balance of the game, but I really enjoyed how the battles required more of me and challenged me more, while still being done quicker than the last 2 games. That's something I've realized about Trails so far. Each game seems to be setting out to make battles quicker than the game before it, and they've done this crazy well here, so I'm all for this. I just hope this doesn't turn battles into being effortless when it comes to mobs down the line. Speaking of quicker, this was the game that made me realize how important speed is in battle. Your characters can be as strong as you want, but if they're killed before they can finish the job, then it doesn't really matter anymore. So buffs and debuffs were actively a part of my strategies from here on out. I guess this really started with the end of SC, but third really hammered in this style of play for me. Like I said in the SC video, I also was a food fiend in this game. I had tons of food at all times, so I could literally handle anything at any given time. The only things I had to watch out for were moments when I couldn't give a party member the food needed because they were far apart on the field, or if I was flat out team wiped, which didn't happen often, but still. This time around, we've got a large cast of characters, 16 in total, which is mind-boggling. I like this a lot because if there was anyone you liked to play as in the past, you got to play as them again here, so it just makes everyone happy. Although some characters are just better than others. I'm sorry, Josette fans, but there's nothing saving her. I used her a few times, but man, she is so underwhelming, and that does not change as she levels up. Her actual stats just suck compared to most other characters even later on. If you need a ranged character, you can do far better, like Kevin for example, or Tita, who are both better than most others in the game. Bro, Josette's remote ability literally rewards you for not using her. Like, come on, man. Oh yeah, I didn't explain that new mechanic yet, did I? So due to the large cast of characters, they allow you to set one character as a remote ability, which grants your party a passive trait in battle. It can be anything from 10% EXP boost to 30% more Sepith drops at the end of battles. There's no reason to not have one set either, so pick one you like and reap the rewards. For me, my team would change quite a bit, especially late game when I was trying to level everyone up, but I'd say my main team was Richard, because bro, why is he so strong? Joshua, because I'm a fanboy, Kevin because Grail Sphere OP, and Tita because Orbital Cannon go boom. I would sometimes switch out for Ren because her magic is crazy strong, but if I'm honest, while not as good with them, Joshua and Kevin were more than enough in that department if needed. Kevin probably being better with them than Joshua, I'd have him cast arts when needed, and Joshua decked out in gladiator gear would phantom raid everything to Kingdom Come. Oh yeah, this is the first time I actually played the game with the English battle voices on. I usually keep the Japanese voices on because the cutscenes are voiced in Japanese, so it just keeps it consistent. But I was pleasantly surprised when I heard Johnny Young Bosch voicing Joshua. It fits so freaking perfectly. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm a huge fan of all of his work, so hearing him voice my edgy good boy Joshua alone made it worth keeping those English battle quotes on. But going back to the memory doors again, there were a few of my favorites I really wanted to talk at least a little about. These doors showcase why this game is so dark, yet at the same time shows how well it's able to balance these light and dark themes. So it may be a bit of whiplash when I explain a few of these. So with that, let's recount the memory doors of Trails in the Sky the Third. Star Door 2, the Salt Pail. This one isn't like most of the doors. There's no interaction and there isn't much for visuals either, so the story of it was what really got to me. This door presents itself as an incident report. In the former Principality of Northumbria, a singularity of sorts had occurred known as the Salt Pail. It's a large unidentified structure that just appeared in Northumbria one day, causing everyone to understandably freak out. By the second day, it was discovered that this salt pail was somehow causing destruction through salinification, as it crystallized an entire forest nearby into salt. This process was causing bridges and highways to no longer be usable, forcing people to flee the state as the salt pail salinification destroyed 3 out of 5 government districts. Eventually, its wave of destruction stopped, and the Gralswater were able to remove the now much smaller salt pail, where they later experimented with using a fragment of it as a weapon, hence why we saw Kevin use this at the end of SC. That was a piece of the salt pail he impaled Wiseman with. It's funny how things work out like that, especially when you realize Wiseman was one of the children who lost his family due to the Northumbrian disaster. Talk about ironic. But this was a really chilling story. Maybe it's because of the lack of visuals, but I found it much more horrifying because it made me use my imagination to visualize the destruction I was being told about, and to see it come full circle and have the last member of Wiseman's family to go out this way too, that being he himself, just kinda hit different for me. Moon Door 3, Descended Wings. This door is all about Chloe in her early days at Genus Royal Academy. It shows her slowly becoming friends with the student council and its president Lecter Arundel, who's become a much more prominent character later in the series, but he had a major impact on her. He's a big reason why Chloe was able to discover more about herself and who she truly wanted to be. He's why she was able to open up and show the real her to her friends. And while this door is a moon door, meaning it's pretty freaking long, it was really neat just having this slice of lifetime with a character I feel so attached to. It shows her being much more reserved than she was when we met her back in first chapter. I really like Chloe, man. She's such a joy to have on screen, so to see her in a really different way was pretty cool, and it really highlighted how much she's grown up to this point. Moon Door 4, Departure. This door is a long flashback of Joshua getting settled in with Estelle and Cassius. A lot of this door is just dumb fun. It mainly consists of Joshua wanting nothing to do with Estelle, and Estelle doing everything she can to get him to open up to her. She understands he's gone through a lot, but she still wants to do what she can to cheer him up, mostly by bringing him bugs. But as the days and weeks go by, Joshua begins to slowly warm up to his new life. He originally didn't think he deserved this kind of life, but he later discovers that everyone submits to Estelle's bright personality eventually. Saving her from some monsters in the forest was that last push he really needed to begin to grow as a person. It then flashes forward to Joshua and Estelle leaving Roland behind to begin their quest for Ren and to become stronger bracers. This was just such a pleasant watch. There's so much from those years they spent together that we didn't get to see. I'm glad we got to see how apprehensive Joshua was back then. It's such a crazy contrast to the goodest boy we saw him as 5 years later in first chapter. It makes for such a nice contrast now too, because after SC, he still retains that nice personality from FC, but he's also headstrong and stoic now, kind of accepting that old darker part of himself. His current character is a nice blend of all the people he used to be. He accepted that change. Man, I loved this door. Star Door 14, Phantasmal Blaze. This door is basically the final door of all, since you need to do all the other doors before this one. This one acts as an immediate epilogue to what happens in Trails SC and sets up for the entire Crossbell arc and, from what I understand, at least half of the Cold Steel games, so it's a big one. After watching Liber Arc fall, we see Campanella teleported to the Celestial Globe, a space that kinda looks like a digital blue box, where they make contact with all the other Anguis members. Throughout the scene, they remark on the death of Wiseman. They also comment on the thought to be vacant spot of the 5th Dominion of the Gralsritter actually being Kevin. They have another short talk about the death of Loe and so on and so forth. A lot of this scene is kind of introducing us to some of these Anguis members and their personalities. Some are quirky, some are uptight, some don't even fight at all apparently and are more on the research and discovery side of things, caring less about people and more about their data and experiments. We even finally get introduced to the Grandmaster of Ouroboros. We don't get anyone's names, but at least we know the Grandmaster is a woman. At the time of writing this, I don't know if they're going to continue to introduce Anguis members or even the Grandmaster as people we knew somehow, like they did for Wiseman, but I'm keeping my eyes open. Okay, this is Future Jordan talking here. A couple of people brought this up before, so I thought I'd address it in this video just to clear things up. Basically, all of these scripts are written while I'm playing the game. So usually I'll specify stuff like, as I'm writing this, or when I wrote this, so people watching can know which me is actually talking. Future Jordan already knows what may be happening in later games. I'm essentially writing what I can of these scripts and coming back later on to finalize them. I just find it fun to write while I'm still being strung along for the ride, while also later on coming back and finishing things so I don't sound totally stupid when the video actually goes up. I have already beaten Trails to Azure. Thanks again, Nisa, for the review copy, by the way. And I'm currently like 10 hours into Cold Steel 1 right now. So in retrospect, looking back at how incredibly well they set this stuff up this early on, back in Trails SC and 3rd, is blowing my mind. They had to have planned so much of this story out ahead of time. It's the only thing that makes sense. This is why I love writing these scripts this way, because I get to reflect on what I thought back then and come back later on and see either how wrong I was or just how well the people at Falcom built this world. But yeah, I'll let Jordan from the past talk to you about the door most of y'all wanted to hear about. Star Door 15, Paradise. I'm gonna do a content warning now for this door. It's not all graphic imagery, but the subject matter is gonna be too much for some people. So if you're not good with these sorts of things, you may wanna skip past this one. It somehow feels wrong to say this is one of my favorites. The subject matter is outright horrifying, and I definitely took the rest of that day attempting to bleach my brain. But the storytelling itself was some of the highest quality I'd seen so far in the series. So essentially this door finally gives us the story of Ren's past. What we know so far was that Ren's family was in some kind of bind, and they left her with a family friend, and she somehow ended up being sent somewhere very bad. They only alluded to what was happening to her back in SC, but this game, Trails 3rd, is not trying to hide that these monsters were sex trafficking children. It sucks because this whole time while in this door, you're trying to deny that they go this far, trying to deny that this is actually happening. But when you go and show Ren's scarred naked body, what else do you think they're trying to imply happened here? These monsters got what was coming to them in the end though. Loe and Joshua laid waste to them all. This door is the one that most who've already played this game were probably hoping I'd talk about, but now that I'm here writing about it, I kind of find myself at a loss. It was horrible. I hate that Ren and those children went through that nightmare, and in the end only Ren made it out. It's when gaming delves into those realistic scenarios that just make me feel so dirty. A lot of times when bad things happen in games, you're still able to separate it from reality, but you kind of can't do that here. The game forces you to look at its ugliness face to face and get through it. It was a hard watch, one I don't plan to revisit. I got the picture, now I want to forget it. I guess you could say it reinforces that desire to have Joshua and Estelle find Ren and make her a part of their family so they can always be together. But dang it, Trails, my heart is broken now, so thanks for that. But moving along to a completely unrelated topic, because I don't know how to transition from that topic naturally, I mentioned for a moment earlier, but the music in this game really does bang. I'm serious. The battle theme, the boss theme, the dungeon themes, the story themes, the final boss theme, it all bangs so hard for no good reason, and it feels so different than the other games in the series. It's all so much more low-key and subdued now, and it's much more of a vibe than the other games are. I still think overall I like the other ones better, but I find myself listening to more of the tracks from this game than the others despite that, because of how much easier they are to listen and vibe to. I'd say my favorites are The Recluse Cube, Determination of Fight, Parallel Universe, Reminisce, and Looking Up at the Sky, just to name a few. They're all softer themes, but they carry so much emotion in them, especially Looking Up at the Sky, which really rubs in that this is the end of the Sky arc. This game, as an epilogue, was nice. One last adventure with these people I've come to love dearly. Their stories may not be over, but their time in the spotlight has finally come to an end. Honestly, I teared up. I'm not even gonna lie to you all. The lyrics just had me feeling some kind of way. It reinforced to me that emotions are a universal language. I may not understand the language the vocalist was singing in, but the emotion tied to those words is something that reaches me regardless of the language. I can feel what she's saying. I can feel what this represents, and that was enough for me. Trails in the Sky the Third is the game that finally broke me, man. The story, the lore, the doors, the music, this lovable cast of characters, it just makes me well up inside even as I'm writing this. This series has come to mean so much to me, and there's still so much more to go. Even after all this time, both me's, past and future, get emotional knowing this arc is over. There's still so many new people to meet, so many more stories to tell. The fates of even some of those I already know are still up in the air. But there's one thing I know for sure. No matter how many better games there are after this, no matter how weird this game may be, no matter how many others don't care for this game, I will always love it for the emotions it made me feel, for the conclusion I finally reached, and the motivation it gave me to take that next step and experience that new story, to go on those new adventures somewhere else in Zemuria. Woo, we got kinda emotional at the end there, huh? Sorry about that. But hey, thanks for sticking around. If you're hungry for more, why not check out my video where I give my impressions of Trails to Azure. Maybe short, but I had fun. Or you could check out my retrospective of The World Ends With You. That one's really good too. Either way, subscribe to the channel if you want, or don't if you don't wanna. But thanks for supporting the video.